I'm here today with Jade Brandais.
Jade Brandais.
Who's the founder and CEO of Renge. And we're going to go live on Dojo Live in just a second. Dojo Live is a streaming video interview where we talk to those creating the future directly. So hear from those creating the futures directly. And I have my co-host and co-producer waiting for us to go live on Dojo Live. If you want to look at us on Dojo Live, you can find us on dojo.nearsoft.com. And that's where we're going to be. So, Carlos, are you ready for us to go live?
Yeah, actually, I just hit the broadcast button, so I guess we're live. We're live now. Yeah.
We're live on Dojo Live today and also on LinkedIn.
It's 1 o'clock.
Let's have some fun with it.
Let's have some fun.
So as I mentioned before, we're here with Jade Brandais, who's the founder and CEO of Renge. And we're at Expert Dojo in Santa Monica on a beautiful sunny day in California. And we want to learn everything we can about you, about your company, and what you're doing. So maybe let's start with you telling us a little bit about yourself, how you got here.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Jade. I'm a SoCal native, so that's always nice. It's nice to be able to do, interviews like this outside, get out of the office. We're actually a few feet away from the beach, which is kind of cool. But I started off with an entertainment background, so I worked in production, mostly behind the scenes, producing and line producing. And a lot of working in entertainment is a lot of networking and meeting people, and it is always, especially in the independent side, which is where I've worked for a studio, always trying to find my next job, which if anyone's done any freelance or gig work, that is one of the toughest things to do. And that's one thing that they don't teach you in school, is how to get your next job. And an independent film that can be as soon as 3 days or sometimes in 6 months. So luckily we live in a town of 4 million people where it's not too bad, it's not too difficult to find your next job, it just takes a lot of work. But that's how I started getting into more networking and eventually developing Renge, which is a networking platform, but not one where many other networking connect you online, hoping that quantity and spamming just as many people as you can will actually lead you to your next job, but really the quality of meeting someone face to face. And all three of us were just a few minutes ago talking about how valuable that connection is face to face and how far removed we've come from it, and where something like Renge can really help out in that arena.
So I'm curious to learn about Renge. There's a lot of networking platform and tools out there, right? Yeah. So what's unique, and more importantly, what gave birth to this idea? What was like that?
The moment?
Yes, yes.
Because there's definitely a moment. So for any of you who work in entertainment or are familiar with film festivals and entertainment, the biggest one in LA is the American Film Market, which takes place every year in November. In Santa Monica, it just shuts down the whole city over at the Lowe's Hotel. And everyone from all over the world is coming to LA to make a deal, to sell their movie, to raise funds, to find their next project. And it's an amazing time to be a filmmaker. Yet at the same time, I remember walking into the Lowe's Hotel, huge lobby, and there's hundreds, if not thousands of people. And it's exhausting. I don't know who anyone is, what they want to do at the market, if they're selling, if they're buying, if they're acting, if they're writing, if they're looking for jobs, looking to hire. I just didn't know. And the best solution that we had was, or that we currently still have, is you look at the person closest to you and you meet that person if they're nice enough, and you just try and meet as many people as possible. Or you go on LinkedIn and try and spam them and hope they're one of the people that actually showed up to the event. So a lot of times, too, people will say they're going to an event but don't end up making it. And those are current networking solutions, or luckily referrals if you have them. So in that moment, I thought there just has to be a better way. I can't obviously meet every single that film. The time I was doing a for Asia, which is very specific. The person who works in distribution for that type of topic might be the person on the other side of whoever's sitting next to me, and I would just never know. So the way that Renge really differs from every single other networking platform out there, which there is a lot, is that it's in real time. So we really encourage face-to-face meetings in real time. The way every other networking platform currently works is that, like I said, you spam as many people as you possibly can that fit the criteria you're looking for, and you really hope for a message back. And if they do message you back, you hope that you can take it further to finally get that face-to-face meeting, via coffee or an in-person interview, whatever that may be. And it's not until you reach that face-to-face meeting do you find out if there's there. But it's always trying to get to that first meet, which a lot of times doesn't even happen. And when you do get that message back, like I said, it could take weeks, sometimes even months to make that happen, where we can actually have that face-to-face meeting with anyone in our surroundings right now. So you don't have to wait for the next American film market to try and sell your film. You can be in line at Starbucks and see who's actually looking for something of very specific work, like a sci-fi film made for Asia.
Okay, so I can see some value in this. So basically what you're saying is this works sort of just in time based on where you are. So you have to actually be there in order to network with someone. I don't know about you, but if there's a conference coming up, I get so many emails in advance of a conference from people that are actually never intending to attend, but they're like saying that they're going to be there because they're just trying to set up meetings. So it's more location-based, real-time. That sounds fantastic. Okay, so what's the adoption been like? Who are the biggest users of this?
Yeah, so the biggest users right now are people who do attend events, and because we're in LA, very entertainment-generated events. The last major one we did was in ties with the Grammys, but we do smaller events outside of that. So a lot of the people on our platform are in the entertainment industry, looking for their next gig, or even we do have some members of the Academy, the Grammy Academy, looking for their next person to collaborate with. So there isn't really so much hierarchical way to network. It's more just looking for partnerships and collaboration and mutual benefits.
Yeah, I remember actually you contacted me on Range.
That's right.
I was in Brentwood picking up my daughter from school.
We met in Range.
And I see because I had found the app. I don't remember how I found it, but I was like, this is kind of cool. I have to check this out. And all of a sudden I see a pop-up saying, hey, this is Jade. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the CEO and founder of this thing. So yes, I can attest it absolutely works, and it works fantastic. So one of the questions I have, by the way, if anyone has any questions, they can submit them live on our Twitter handle at Dojo Live. You can also tune in on dojo.nearsoft.com. Either way, we will get those questions, and my fellow co-producer and co-host Carlos is standing by, who will patch those questions to us.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about your journey. What's that been like? From the beginning, you said, I have an idea, to where you are now.
Yeah, it's really interesting because just depending on who I relay this to, either people get it or people are a little slow to understand. And that's been probably the biggest journey, is understanding the psychology behind networking. From the people that are extroverts, that are very outgoing and seeing this more as network efficiency, to the people who are a little bit more introverted and use this as a tool to help them go out and make the first move. So it solves quite a few problems just psychologically when meeting new people. There's a lot of times that approach anxiety, where with something like Range, you're in person, instead of trying to awkwardly make eye contact and hope that they make eye contact back with you and are really open to meeting with you, and then hoping that your intentions are on the same page, Range really alleviates that kind of stress, because you can see right off the bat who's in your area, what they're looking for, what they're offering. You simply double tap on their profile to meet up in person, and if they receive a request, then you can meet in seconds. So we've seen just that range of how people really interact with each other, and that's kind of been one of the most fascinating parts of this journey, is realizing, of course, not everyone's like you. Not everyone is willing to go to AFM and try and meet as many people as possible, and are very extroverted. A lot of people will stay at home and kind of hope for the best, or spam people on LinkedIn kind of from the safety of their computer in their own home. But really, we encourage everyone from introvert to extrovert to even just go out to your local coffee shop and see who's there.
So would you say it's a business social platform that encourages face-to-face
Yes,
interaction?
absolutely.
Okay, cool. So how do you make money on this?
Well, the number of users will greatly help because it is geo-fenced by location, by venue, and by event. So at that moment, because it is in real time, we allow brands and venues themselves to actually promote to people who are willing to know what's in that area. So, for example, if you're at the Expert Dojo, but right across the street from us is the Cheesecake Factory, and if you're there and you want to see who's there, which could be interesting. They do have a bar, you never know. But you could see what kind of specials and deals they have or when they're going to have them on another date. So it really comes into play when you're even at a venue like Bed Bath & Beyond, where you get a lot of those 20% off discount coupons. Instead of receiving about 1 million of those in the mail, when you're actually there, you can see which brands are on sale and which ones have the best deals. So increasing your user database is one, and then another revenue stream is actually providing a lot of value for the events and venues themselves. So we can actually see how many business cards were exchanged at your event or conference and how many are actually meeting up in person both at that event and even after that event has ended. So that's the other major value both for users and event hosts to see one, how your events are doing. Basically, everyone goes to an event in the hopes of making a real genuine connection. Sometimes you leave with 20 business cards, but none of them really pan out. And all you really need is just one partnership to make that event very, very valuable and for you to want to go again. So knowing how many business cards are exchanged, not just on the superficial level, but remember both of these parties through Range are wanting to meet each other. So these are more qualified meetings. And two, even after the event ends, if there's a bunch of people that you didn't get to meet up there, that's okay. You can find them on the app afterwards and reach out to them and see if you'd like to meet up in the future.
Any particular partnership that would benefit what you're doing? Or what's on your roadmap? Is in terms of sign up? Are you planning to offer some kind of connection with Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter? What's the strategy to gain audience or users and provide value to perhaps existing platforms that don't offer what you offer?
Yeah, Meetup and Eventbrite are great partners. Just being able to plug into all of their events that are occurring daily in Meetup and Eventbrite. Both have large events. Usually we've seen this work best in areas of 50 or more people. Partnerships with them. Something that we do because our demographic is slightly younger, the millennials and the Gen Zers, partnering up with Instagram stories, showing where you're at and getting people to come hang out with you.
So are we going to be on an Instagram story a little bit later? Is that going to happen?
Probably, actually. If you go to @Jade Brandais, I've already posted a story. This is what we do now.
All right, fantastic. Any questions yet, Carlos, from the audience?
Actually, well, there was one, but it was right here on the. First of all, on the LinkedIn feed, a gentleman.
I saw something come in on the LinkedIn feed.
Yeah. Well, he was requesting.
It's a little hard to figure that out.
Exactly. That's why I'm here for. He was requesting a link to the app, and I just did that. So.
Oh, somebody's already interested in the app. That's
good. So Christopher Berner, creative strategist.
You can find a link to the app on www.rangeapp.com. Also, just straight to the App Store on just Range App, RENGE app.
We're going to have that too on the landing page on Dojo Live. Speaking of the name Range, how did that come about? Why Range?
Yeah, well, Range actually pronounced as Renge, but no one could pronounce Renge. So we went to the range and, are you in range? And it became kind of a double meaning. Okay. But Renge actually means lotus. And a lotus flower is known for the simultaneity of blooming and producing seeds at the same time. And that represents cause and effect. Every single cause that we make or don't make has a very definite effect. And so when you're building your business, when you're looking for achievement, when you're building your art, it you're not an island. You know, it takes a whole team of people to really build and achieve with you. And that very specific cause has an effect. And so we really encourage you to go out and make that cause. The effect can be partnerships like this and whatever your art or your project may be to inspire.
I think it's interesting. I love it, by the way. I think it's interesting. We were talking earlier before we went live how we live in a world where, unfortunately, the screen-to-screen has often taken over the face-to-face relationships. And literally, there'll be a need for people to actually learn how to interact in person. Are you noticing that being a challenge in terms of getting adoption? And what are some of the things that could help individuals kind of get around that? You talked about the psychology of this a little earlier. I'm curious to hear what you discovered and how you're going about encouraging more face-to-face interaction.
Yeah, this actually helps a lot with that. And that's, you know, one of the many reasons why I do this is because I'm a huge proponent of Tristan Harris's Time Well Spent movement. He's an ex-Google employee who, from, you know, the very beginning years ago, theorized, although we're seeing it a lot now, that addiction to screen time is really causing a lot of the social disorders. Anxiety, depression, and even in kids, there have been studies from college placement workers saying that face-to-face meetings and networking has devolved into a soft skill, and that is hugely alarming. We're not having an adoption problem with that because we're actually helping people with that approach anxiety. So it's about combining that technology of doing this, being in your screen, but using it to actually meet someone face to face, because it's really just a double tap, which we can do on Instagram all the time, swiping through profiles, but it's taking that screen time, but then having an immediate reward of meeting that person face to face, like I said, immediately.
That's great. I mean, we seriously need that today. It's very alarming. So, you know, a lot of companies, a lot of startups talk about how they want to change the world. It's very, very refreshing to actually hear a company that's applying technology that actually helps us connect more. You know, it's fascinating. I was recently reading a book, actually about Dalai Lama and I forget the name of the bishop, but there was a chapter that talked about how there's a big thought of a lot of people saying, I don't need anyone, right? So I'm good all by myself. I don't need anyone. And the argument was, when you're born, you need someone. You're interdependent on someone. And when you die, you're interdependent on someone. So the idea of not being interdependent, not needing anyone, is actually a false idea. So this is a fantastic thing, because we do need more tools to allow people to connect face-to-face in real time. In terms of where you are now and a leapfrog moment, what would that be for you in terms of significant growth and opportunity for growth? What would that look like? Fast forward 5 years. How do you want this to look? I don't know, maybe 6 months. Let's start with 6 months.
I was like, well, you know, we've saturated the LA market and we're ready to move nationally. But in 5 years, in 5 years, I hope to really see people go back to the basics of human interaction. I hope that, you know, we've seen this incline of more depression and anxiety, and hearing things about college students networking as a soft skill, and seeing that on the decrease, just to see those numbers go down, or maybe even plateau, you know, just depending on where we're at. But as long as those numbers stop going up, then we've really succeeded as a company. As far as growth in the next 6 months, like I said, you're in the LA market. Feel free to download Range, see who your neighbor is. Not necessarily at home, although if you don't know your neighbor at home, you should maybe ask for a cup of sugar and get to know them. But anywhere you go. So
let's rewind a little bit from when you started this. If you were looking at this business and everything you've learned, what advice would you give to yourself looking from the outside?
That's a really good question. So many things. Probably the biggest piece of advice is don't listen to everyone. I mean, because I was a new entrepreneur, this is the first startup, I come from the world of entertainment production. There is a lot of things that carry over, like management and production and getting things made off from the ground up, with a very small budget to start. But everyone has advice to give me, and at the beginning, you know, I was taking as much of it as I could because I was so new to this business, and realizing that a lot of people had conflicting advice, and so learning well into the company to listen to my own mission and to take people's advice and heed it, but not necessarily get lost in it.
So would you say that trusting your sort of self and also your passion trumps hearing out everybody, naysayers and a bunch of other people have opinions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think remembering your mission and why you do this is, you know, the number one thing you should listen to. It doesn't mean that there's a lot of really great advice that I've taken and it's helped me grow tremendously, but not to feel so bogged down.
Amazing lessons. So, Carlos, any questions from the audience? Any additional questions? You're our eyes and ears today.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, we have one question actually, and this question is coming internally, as a matter of fact, from one of our fellow teammates here in Mexico City, Cuauhtemoc.
So we have a question from internal here at Nearsoft.
Yes.
I'm just repeating for the LinkedIn feed.
Okay. Yeah. Here it is. Well, how do you go? This question is from Cuauhtemoc. How do you go? Excuse me. I'm sorry. How do you go about deciding who to integrate and partner with and why?
How do you go about, I'm sorry, repeat that?
Deciding who to integrate and partner with and why.
Okay, how do you decide who to integrate with and who to partner with and why? How do you make those decisions?
Well, first is the demographics. So something like, you know, Meetup and Eventbrite, and where we're at as a company right now. So Meetup and Eventbrite both have a huge, you know, LA demographic of people who are essentially the lowest hanging fruit. These are people who are already going out, wanting to meet people, going to events, wanting to network. So that partnership is the first one to see on the horizon. And why is, like I said, demographics. They're the market that they have that we can plug into that would make the most sense for Range. And of course, their location.
Great. Any other questions, Carlos?
No, not yet, Tulio. I'm just reminding everybody that they can send us your questions. And guys, if you're listening here, I mean internally at Nearsoft, just remember you to send me your questions on Slack, and I'll just read them here for Jade to answer.
Dojo Live.
And of course, Twitter at Dojo Live.
Great. I can't see anything because I had to take my glasses off because they were dark. How much time do we have left, Carlos?
We got 8 minutes.
8 minutes, great. So that's good. So one of the things that we often hear from entrepreneurs is the courage it took for them to go in this direction, to actually become an entrepreneur. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Anyone who's sitting on the fence thinking about, hey, I'm in film or I'm in this, and I have an idea, but hasn't quite taken the leap or hasn't had the courage to move forward. Any words of wisdom you'd like to share with those who might be listening that are on the fence about becoming an entrepreneur, starting a company?
Yeah, just do it.
Besides just do it.
The thing is, the more you think about it, the longer you're giving yourself not to do it. So the second you dive right in, and financially it makes sense for you. If you're doing it part-time, especially if you're doing it part-time, you know, if you still keep your day job, in those moments outside of your day job, to really go for it, then do it. There's nothing else holding you back except for you. I remember when I still had my day job and building this, I'd be on set, and you know, in between takes, I'm making calls on the computer. I'm doing everything I can to make most of those times that I had outside of trying to make money to start this. So my biggest advice is it's not going to get easier the longer you wait.
Okay, but I heard something there in between, which is you've got to be willing to hustle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hustle.
Yeah.
And you got to put in the time and the effort.
Yeah. How
did you go about finding a technology co-founder? I mean, you're not an engineer by trade. How did you go?
that, Tulio?
Fun interruption. How did you go? I don't know. Someone's calling as we're talking. How did you go about finding? Did you find a technology co-founder like a CTO? How did you go about doing that? Because one of the things I often get is from people like, how do I start? Like, I'm not a technology person. I have an idea about who I work with to build this. How did you go about doing that?
Literally everything you could think of, I tried. So yeah, I'm not an engineer. So one, coming up with the idea was the first thing, and then trying to find someone who wanted, not just was willing to, but who really wanted to help build it out, because this is a long-term partnership. So I went to every single tech networking event I could find in Los Angeles, meeting people face to face. I also spammed as many people as I could on all of the platforms until I took a lot of interviews until I finally found someone who really shared the same vision as I did. Elliot, if you're listening, hey, what's up? Who really shared the same vision, and for me that was the most important. There were a lot of people who were technically capable, but when you finally find someone who shares as much passion about what you're doing as you do, that's the person you want to hold on to and partner up with, because yeah, this was real. The late nights, right before we launched, poor guy was only getting like 3 hours of sleep. So someone who's willing to do that and wants to do that and is happy to do that, so you want to partner with. And like I said, every single networking platform out there, you can use Renge to find your next tech co-founder, and meeting as many people at networking events, or even just off the street. If I heard someone that said they work in tech, I'd immediately want to talk to them and see if they knew any technical co-founders who can build that.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us. One final question. We're always up on time, and it starts to get really fun. But any words of wisdom you'd like to share with those who are listening, whether they're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur or already are an entrepreneur and struggling, words of wisdom you'd like to share so far in your journey, especially as a first-time entrepreneur. Sounds like you're doing great. What are some key lessons you've learned and things you want to share that maybe can help someone else avoid a lot of trial and errors?
Yeah, the one thing that's really helped me a lot is reading a ton of books, both in business development and in self-development, starting with one of those Think and Grow Rich, because a lot of it is a mental mindset needed to push forward. So that would be my biggest advice.
Feed the brain, feed the soul. Great advice.
Tulio, before we go, we have one more question, and actually
one more question
from Kimberly from Internal Communications of Nearsoft, Kimberly Lantis. So can you share one or two of the most interesting connections you've made with Renge or Renge?
Well, this is one of them right here.
Oh, cool.
Meeting in Renge, which is kind of cool. Seeing Renge come to life in action. The other one is actually meeting people from the Grammy Academy. Those are the people who decide who goes home with a Grammy and who doesn't.
That's super cool. Well, thank you.
I think we lost
Kim. There's your response. So
that were there. What does it say? Also, we can hear you. Fantastic. Well, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a pleasure. We're experimenting something new today. We're like having 2 cameras up. Next week, hopefully, I'll have the studio to patch the sound through the Google Hangouts directly on the LinkedIn feed, so that'll avoid having to have 2 cameras. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for being with us. And Carlos, who's our guest next week?
Next week, I was gonna get into that. Actually, for those of you who are watching, I'd like to remind you that next week we are going to be speaking with. I need to get a handle on how to pronounce this because it's Yannick Lawetz. I hope I'm getting it right because he's from. It's a Dutch name, so I apologize. Yannick Lawetz or Lawetz or however it's pronounced. So I apologize for this blooper. But he's going to be the founder and CEO. He is the founder and CEO of Luggage Hero, which is a travel tech company with operations in the US and Europe. So that's what we're going to be speaking with him. Is specifically about, let's see if I have the topic right here. Yes, how to scale to 36 cities in 12 months.
Wow.
Scale or die. So exactly.
So that's 36 cities in 12 months.
I like
yes, exactly.
That's true.
All right, well,
basically, he's going to be telling us about how to master a market platform and creating equal demand to the supply you're building. So that should be interesting, and that's with Yannick Lawitz, the founder and CEO of Luggage Hero. So that's going to happening on Dojo Live next Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific. See you here, folks. Make a note of it. Mark your calendar. See you here. Okay. Oh, I forgot it. I should log off. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jade. Thank you, Tilly, as ever. Talk soon.